And I'd love to talk about some of your more recent projects. Obviously, in the last couple of years, you've had a handful of really awesome things that have come to fruition. Specifically, after Humble, you got to work on 2 more Kendrick Lamar projects. And I would love to just hear what your experience was, one, working with someone like himself, but also how this collaboration came to light to begin with.
So Humble came about mainly because one of the places I interned, funny enough, was Radical Media. And as I started to produce, I just kept in touch with the people that worked there, and they sort of saw that I was, gaining some notoriety and doing some bigger projects. And they started to give me some small projects to try on my own. And Dave Meyers has been a really long time director at Radical Media, and he was director of Humble. And I was interning for him when I was a sophomore and junior in college. So I've known him for a really long time. So it was a very interesting change in experience to go from your boss to being their producer. Dave basically saw that I was doing some big videos and was like, let's try it out for this Kendrick project that we have going on. And it was large. We were doing 2 videos at the same time. So we had another producer, Nathan Scherer, who was co-producing with me. So we could try and do this immense workload. Mm-hmm. And it also had a very crazy turnaround because they were trying to keep the song locked down. So we basically did the video from start to finish in 10 days, which is extremely aggressive for a music video. And overall, I think the experience went well. That's where I met Dave Free, who's Kendrick's manager, and where I met Kendrick. And we did Humble, and we did a video called Love from that album. Mm-hmm. And, Kendrick has been working on this most recent album since then. And earlier last year, I got a call from Jamie Rabineau, who also is part of Humble and now works at PG Lang. And they invited me back, which was really nice to know that they liked what I did and wanted to have me. And so we did The Heart Part 5, and we did Count Me Out.
And I love you were specifically saying something just about production for music videos, and it was quite ambitious to shoot that in 10 days. What does a typical production look like when you're going onto a music video of that size, let's say?
There's nothing typical. The music industry can be erratic. I would say at the bare minimum, I normally would be looking at 2 weeks of prep and then 1 to 3 shoot days for a music video, and then at least a month of post. So we did that all in 10 days instead. I mean, I was doing some soft prep, some location research up to that point, but once all the triggers were pulled, it was a scramble to get everything permitted, find the right locations.
Yeah.
We shot it, I think, in 3 days. And yeah, we had the VFX team and the editorial team on set because we had to be editing as we were shooting. We were temping VFX at the same time. So we had to throw a lot of money towards, this accelerated turnaround.
Right. That's really interesting. And I guess going now back to Count Me Out in The Heart Part 5, what's interesting about those music videos is how close Kendrick is to crafting them. Obviously, as a director, Dave Free is also a director, I think, on both of them, right? What is it like going from a music video where there's a separate director from the artist, but now you have the artist also being this close to directing it? Is there a different way you have to walk onto that production knowing, okay, Kendrick's going to be a part of this. He's going to be very meticulous about how this comes together. Do you have to see it through differently?
Yeah, that kind of exposes a different aspect of producing, definitely. I've been in different scenarios with artists being directors. I've done a lot of work with Sia, who directs a lot of her own work, sometimes with her collaborator, Daniel Askell. I've also done work where I have celebrities or actors that are directing for the first time. So there's a lot of hand-holding that goes into that. It's almost like a little mini film school at times. I've worked with a range of different people that are coming into directing, and producing, a lot of it is really kind of being a chameleon for the situation and really adapting to what the needs might be. But to go back to specifically Kendrick, he has this very long-standing relationship with Dave. I want to say they've known each other since they were teenagers. So their collaboration is a little bit more direct and sort of the the summary of what is needed, it gets passed on to me for me to go execute.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What really interested you specifically for Count Me Out in the Heart Part 5? Is there something that you really wanted to help them bring to life?
Well, I think working with Kendrick's a lot easier of a decision to make because he's making some of the best music out there.
Right.
So there was no question whether the song was going to be good. So that easily checked that box. But, I think what's really interesting about the Heart Part 5 is the simplicity of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, relatively easy to produce. It's just him against a painted backdrop. And I think Count Me Out, it's fairly large in scope. Pretty much every shot in the video is its unique vignette. And we had to figure out how we could achieve that because I don't know what the actual count is of how many vignettes we have, but we only have 3 days to shoot it. We had to figure out how to find bases, find anchors in what our locations or what existing logistics we had and kind of make it work. So
right.
Those are always challenging. There's a lot of directors that kind of direct in a very vignette kind of way. And it's always about how to get as many things on their mind shot.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of setups, definitely, and Count Me Out. And just out of curiosity, what was it like working with Helen Mirren as well as for the therapist?
Helen was great. Couldn't be more lovely. And she was, very excited to be there too.
Yeah. How did she get involved in the project?
We were just looking for someone that could really bring gravitas to the role. It's one of those things where the problem in music videos is you don't really have a lot of time to develop a character, and you kind of a lot of times music videos rely on celebrity cameos because they need an actor that's going to either bring something from their past roles or just their general persona that will help elevate the video. If it was sort of an unknown actor, you might not be able to dive right into that video as well. We just kind of made a dream list of people that would be an amazing therapist type of role. And Helen was the one that said yes. So
that's really cool. Yeah. And I guess I don't know if this is something that really plays into you as a producer, but obviously the Heart Part 5 came out right before his latest album. And then he had a couple of other music videos that came out. In terms of scheduling, are you a part of how that's formulated and just the overall release of it and how that is going to play into, especially with the Grammys coming up? Is that something that you're a part of, or is there typically like a different team that works on that?
Usually that comes from management or the record label. I like the marketing conversations. I'm always curious how people come up with things, but usually I don't have too much input on it.
Right. Now I want to talk about, you don't only just do music videos. Obviously you did the film that came out, The Seven Faces of Jane, and you've also been a part of the Beastie Boys documentary. I want to hear what it was like trying to pivot from doing music videos to now trying to get into different parts of the whole just filmmaking medium. What was your strategy, or was there a reason, or did this something that just like landed on your plate?
It's been really hard to transition. I think the unfortunate thing, and I don't think it's only in filmmaking, but you kind of get pigeonholed for what you do. And I think a lot of other creative positions in film feel the same way, where they do one thing and they're like, oh, that's their thing. That's the kind of things that they shoot, or this is the kind of tone that they always like. And, most people have diverse interests and want to do a lot of different things. So for the longest time in building my career, I was just trying to work and just trying to do cool things. So once I got to the point where, I had some credibility, I had some success, I really wanted to try and move back into other mediums. And once again, music videos was just something I fell into because Ross, the person that I started to work for when I started as a PA and as a coordinator, was doing music videos and commercials. And it was just really a coincidence that I went down this music video course. When I came out of film school, I really wanted to make films. So I had to try and take a look at my career and know that if I really wanted to make this transition, I might have to turn down some music videos and might have to take some other, smaller gigs to make this transition. So I would say the transition kind of started with this film that I worked on called Music. It was directed by Sia. And I was brought on as an associate producer and ultimately was a co-producer on the project. That was very unique in the sense of it was my music video client that was bringing me into the feature space, because thankfully I had such a close relationship with Sia and her work as a director that she was the one that insisted that I work on the film. She, being a pop star and a celebrity, she could have, leveled up and found anyone else to work with, but she's a very kind soul and very much respected me and knew what I brought to the table, that she was like, no, Jason needs to be involved in this film. I know he's not producing the whole film, but he's part of the team and he needs to be there. So it was really her sticking up for me that brought me into the film conversation.
That's really nice.
And as a result, I really became close with the film's producer, Vincent Landay, who's Spike Jonze's producer for most of his film career and his music video and commercial career. And that kind of set me off into some of the other feature and narrative opportunities, which became working with Spike on Beastie Boys Story. And also that working on music led me to working on the Transparent finale for Amazon, where I was an associate producer as well. So as much as I thought I need to go completely away from music videos to make films, it really was my music video career that helped jump off the other projects.
Is there something that you like about being a producer on a film that you quite can't get, say, on a music video?
The nice thing about working on a feature, because it's longer, I guess, is there's way more support staff.
Right.
On a music video, I'm used to doing a lot of other jobs wrapped into mine, literally down to, if it's a small music video, like I might have to go to Trader Joe's and shop the craft service, but on a feature, it's, there's people to do that. I don't have to do that every day. So having support in your job and not feeling like you have to do every little thing makes the experience so much nicer.
Absolutely. And let's spend some time talking about the Seven Faces of Jane, a really interesting piece. When did this come across your table and what intrigued you about it? And could you give us a synopsis for the audience of what the film is about?
Sure. Just a small correction. You mentioned at the start that it's on Netflix. It's on video on demand.
Okay.
Right now. So the Seven Faces of Jane is based on this concept of Exquisite Corpse. Exquisite Corpse is a game that the surrealist painters used to play, and it's also known as Consequences, where essentially it's a collaborative art creation. So we took that in a film context by having what is 7 or 8 directors direct one feature film. So they share one character named Jane, played by Gillian Jacobs, and we have 8 directors that wrote or possibly co-wrote, depending on the person, different pieces of Jane's journey. And we constructed a feature film out of that. So it's not really an anthology of short films. It's really one film that just so happens to be directed by 8 people. And when they were directing, they had no idea what was coming before them, what was coming after. So you have a mix up of genres and a mix up in tones that hopefully works as an interesting experiment. And to answer your question, how I sort of came into it, through my music video and commercial work, I work a lot with the Directors Bureau, which is Roman Coppola's company. And through that relationship, I've also done a music video for Paul McCartney with Roman. And he brought me onto this film, and mainly because it wasn't a large budget. It was $2 million. And we had to try and figure out how to balance 8 directors and all of their desires. And, we gave them this sort of fair 2 days each approach so that, they had the same sort of constraints. But it was a lot of work, and I ended up bringing another producer, Sarah Park, to co-produce it with me so that I could take 4 directors, she could take 4 directors just to get through it, because it was too much for one person. And we also had Allison Amon that was overseeing it for us too.
Oh, wow. So what did Principal look like, if you could just break that down?
It was really quick. The director, it was kind of we try to pitch it as a game for the directors. So they had about a month of prep to conceive, write, look for locations. So over that course of the month, we were just trying to get all of their pieces together. And then we shot for 15 days. It's confusing because it's called The Seven Faces of Jane, but there's 8 directors.
Yeah.
7 directors got 2 days each. Gillian Jacobs got to direct the opening and the closing. We did that in 1 day. So that was a 15-day shoot. We did that in August of 2021. And then it was almost like a television show in the sense that we were editing it, currently was shooting it, and it was kind of overlapped. And then we had to finish it, and we did the same thing for sound. And so it was this, constant balancing of everyone's desires and still trying to keep it on budget.
How did the rest of the production look? Did you guys use the same director of photography and everybody else was the same, and the directors, or what swapped out?
Yeah, so the one way that we conceived of trying to make it relatively sane was to have the same DP, same production designer, same costume designer. The physical production crew more or less stay the same with one exception. And post, though, we kind of opened it up. Anyone could edit with whoever they wanted to. We had the same sound mixer for the whole project. So it was a balance of trying to keep the same crew to not make utter chaos.
Yeah. And was there anything specific that really inspired you? I'm assuming the challenge in itself was probably fun as a producer, trying to crack the code of how to manage all of the different directors. And I love like what you were saying before, how the style for each portion changes too, because there's no parameters on how that's supposed to look. But was there anything that specifically stood out in the script that you loved?
Well, when I signed on, there was no script.
Okay.
So really what I was signing on to was the experiment of it.
Right.
And the idea of like, can we create an enjoyable film with these disparate elements? And it was a challenge that brought me to it. And, it was an opportunity to really produce a narrative feature, which I hadn't been given the opportunity up to that point. So it was a potential learning experience for me, which was appealing. And it was nice to also do it with a company that supported me, having a relationship with Roman and having a relationship with the production with his company. Like, I knew I had the resources to not fail, but to have the support if I needed it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And is this something, are you in the union now as a producer?
So there's no real union for producers.
Okay.
There's the PGA,
guild, yeah,
which is the Producers Guild. It's really just I'm forgetting what the wording technically is, but it's just it's a professional membership organization. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a member, just because at this current stage it's not giving me anything that I need at the moment. And being a member doesn't preclude you from the PGA mark, which is at the end of most movies or large movies that you see. But I am in the DGA as a unit production manager, which is kind of a interesting role, and it's a lot like a line producer. But I was brought into the DGA through Beastie Boys Story, and I've kind of been using that as an advantage for the feature films that I've been making.
Yeah.